Hi, today we're going to do Angelica seed. I nearly did the same as I did yesterday. I keep going to say aniseed, Angelica seed. Now, I got my scenting stick, but it's very depressed to find that it's dry as a bone in my bottle. So if nothing else, I've realised I've got to buy some new Angelica seed. Is it an oil that you use? So, Latin name, Angelica Archangelica. You have got to love any oil with that name, haven't you? Angelica Archangelica, angel of all the angels, and it's a lovely oil that I do use a lot. I'm not surprised that the bottle's empty. Yeah, it's always empty to me, but it's also an oil that was very popular in medieval times, especially to herbalists, because it's a strange oil in that it's emotionally sedative but physically stimulating. So that's an unusual combination, isn't it? You like peppermint is emotionally stimulating and physically stimulating, and what would we say? Oh, you can work it out. Lavender is completely sedative across the board. So this is emotionally sedative but physically stimulating. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Paracelsus. Paracelsus was one of the people who did the most amount of work on doctrine and signatures, and he writes quite a lot about Angelica seed, and he said it was a marvellous medicine in the plague of Milan from 1510, and also I found that it was used as an Angelica water in 1655. You will be aware as well that it's in different, I'm shaking the table, aren't I, with my book, sorry. It's also in different liqueurs and drinks, so sort of vermouth, chartreuse, benedictine, they're all aniseed. I'm doing it again, aren't I? Angelica liqueurs. So it's an interesting plant because it grows very, very tall. It has very big flowers, but it only flowers once through to July, whereas the other flowers in the garden, usually you can cut them and they'll come again like the roses. It only gets one flowering. And I have to say, after going back and reviewing these this year, it's one of the plants I'm thinking that's got to go in the garden this year. When I was younger and I used to work in Mum's company, outside of the back door there was loads of sort of people's garages, and it grew wild like a weed out there. It was so beautiful. It'd have this beautiful show of big yellow sort of yellowy green flowers. It's part of the Umbelliferae family if you're old like me, but the youngsters among you, the newbies who are learning, will say Apiaceae, same family. Basically it's a family that has umbrella kind of flowers, so also things like dill, fennel, celery, parsley, carrot, they all come from that family, and they tend to be very good detoxifiers, and Angelica is no different. If you look at the stem, actually that's quite a good representation how the pen's kind of faceted as it goes round. Angelica's like that. I cleared out the baking cupboard the other day. Daryl's putting a new kitchen in, and I was ordered to address some of the things that had been in there and were now sticking to the sides, and Angelica was one of those, and my pot was best before 2008. So it's time it went. But I have to say I really like Angelica. It's got a very sort of aniseedy kind of taste, and I'm not a fan of aniseed, but I do like Angelica. It looks so pretty on the top of cakes. And the reason why we eat it from medieval times is that it's very, very digestive, and that's one of the primary uses of the essential oil. Going back to the plague, that Paracelsus writes that he both the root and the seeds were burned to get rid of the plague, and it's often used in rituals as well. If you look at old-fashioned medicine, we'll talk more about that in the Angelica root, because it's more Angelica root that it was for, but it's Well, with a name like Angelica, Archangelica, what do you think it might be connected with? Angels, right? And it's one of those oils that is specific for hospice care, people who have some kind of transition to make to the other world, and it kind of makes you less scared of what's ahead. But also, it's very much about compassion, compassion for oneself, but compassion for others as well. Let's see what what else I've written on the thing. So, emotionals on the next page. I remember writing it. So, it connects with the crown chakra and the throat chakra, and also the third eye, and it's very much about connecting with other realms. So you've got this connection with consciousness, but also being able to see the truth of situations and perhaps read more into it than other people can do. It's ruled from a planetary point of view by Jupiter, which rules expansion, Neptune, which is dreamlike, and Uranus, which is expect the unexpected. So it's very much about not necessarily this world, but what's going on in your subconscious, really, and messages that come through, and just intuition, really. Margaret Ann Lembo is another lady. I talked about Deborah Eisden yesterday. Margaret Ann Lembo is another vibrational writer whom I read a lot of her work. And she says about Angelica, I go with the ever-changing flow of life willingly and joyfully. And I think that that's a very good analysis of how the medicine works, because if you think about sort of often digestive problems, when you're looking at a person's illness over a long period of time, you can see that there's been a big change and they've struggled to be able to swallow that change, and that everything has slowed down. And Angelica is more about, right, relax and let go, but also being able to look more deeply into the lessons that are happening to you and going, well, what am I learning? Why is this happening? I showed you my mug yesterday. I'm going to drink from the mug again here. My, yeah, still, but obviously that's 10 minutes before yesterday today. But also we've got on the back, #meh. I don't know if you can see that the right way around when it comes up on the screen. And I hate that. I don't like it. It spoils the thing. But I've decided I've got a new hashtag, which is #Life's Rich Tapestry. And that's very much Angelica seed medicine, that you go, well, okay, I am having a bit of a crap day today, but why? What am I learning from that? And it makes you a bit more philosophical, really. It helps purge. Now we'll be going back to physical medicine in a moment, but in a way the helps purge is both physical and emotional. On the physical, it makes you sweat in a big way, detoxifies and really helps you, it makes you sweat. But it calms the mind, really, of all the chatter that's going on, but also it finds ways for you to get it out, whatever's bothering you. So if you're like me and always got a pen in your hand and you journal, then Angelica seed kind of takes the information from here and takes it into the pen and gets it down on the paper, and it's gone. Likewise, when you're crying, it's therapeutic crying. You know, the grief, the anger, whatever it is, finds a way from there out through the tears, and it's gone. Very, very healing oil. And again, why we would use it in hospices, that the healing happens before somebody dies, hopefully, or the loved one's healing happens before they die. It's very very good for helping process the emotions generally. And Lembo writes that it's good for intuitives and mental health counsellors and neurologists, and I think that's absolutely right, because you've got this connection between subconscious and conscious, and with a lot of mental health problems, of course, the line's very, very blurred, and you can't quite work out, well, is it happening, is it not happening? And it's a good way for them to be able to tap in with that. So physically then, as I said, very much digestive, and if you've got a stress related condition, so if you're really holding on to it and you can't absorb the change, then you have got constipation. But likewise, if somebody feels very out of control with life, then diarrhea kind of will present itself, and so Angelica seed is very good for that. I've written down here Chinese medicine uses it for increasing fertility, but I don't really know why. It is a gynecological, and it certainly will help to regulate periods. So if you wanted to use it like as a compress, for example, for a couple of days in your cycle, to be able to wedge that into a better cycle, then it's good for that. But it is phototoxic, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's very good for cramping. So you've got like menstrual cramping, of course, and things like restless leg syndrome, but also anything where somebody's anxious and they tense up, especially if somebody has been stressed for a long time, and you've got long-term stress and the body is just can't let go because it's learnt now, the muscles contract like that and they actually can't remember how they're supposed to be, then Angelica is an extremely helpful oil then. Excuse me. It grounds and balances, so it's anchoring and restorative. I've gone very quiet, haven't I? Because I remember writing something interesting about that, but so I didn't write it down, so it's obviously I thought that I had. Sorry about the sun, by the way. When somebody has been stressed for a long time, if you've read my professional stress solution, you'll know that their body becomes very yin, and so their personality will change, but also the body works in a different way. But emotionally, they sort to become more floaty, and you'll recognize that they, you know, you become absent-minded, you become very forgetful, a bit flaky, and it's tiredness that does it, and it's this long-term stress that does it. So Angelica seed has a way of being able to just kind of, where you're floating away, push it down, anchor the psyche, anchor the memory, and anchor the mind to be able to work better. And then as it's coming back in, it's like the aura's been anchored back into the body, and you feel more yourself again. And that's where this anchoring comes back, that you kind of feel like you've been pushed down, and you can rest more. You're more grounded, you rest more easily on the earth. So it's very interesting how that energy works, that, you know, if you're off with the fairies, off with the angels maybe, it pulls it down. And from that point of view, it works quite a yang way. Going back to, I got distracted when I was talking about the pen. Going back to the doctrine of signatures, the stem of the plant is hollow, and in doctrine of signatures, there's they talk about if a plant has a hollow stem, then it relates to tubules in the body. So for example, lungs and blood vessels, and anything that's where the body has to push through something, then you get this cleaning situation. So excuse me. Remember how I said most of the oils in the family were detoxifying, and from the old ways of doing it, it's the stem that would have given that away. It's got kind of a reddish purple stem, and that pertains to blood, but also in terms of relaxation as well. So if you see purple, it's quite a spiritual colour, but also it's very relaxing colour. So if you see that in a plant, it will help you to understand that it will calm as well. Expectorant. Now I have to say, what I was hoping that I could shove some Angelica on myself, given that I feel that I have none, so I have to think of another one. But expectorant, so when you're coughing, all the rubbish comes up, which is great. Antispasmodic, I've said. Carminative, well, we've said that about the digestion. Detoxifying. Diaphoretic, makes you sweat. So, excuse me, I'm not very well at all, am I? I'm moving you. That's better. Maybe you're not so blinded now. If you, because the body detoxifies itself through sweat, oils that make you sweat are very, very useful. The problem that you've got with Angelica seed and any oils that come from Angelica is that they are phototoxic. In other words, that they will make you blotchy or perhaps irritate the skin if they're exposed to the sun. So I would always say to use it in very low dilutions. Maybe even 0.5% is enough. It's a very strong oil, and then you don't have the phototoxicity. So yeah, so 0.5%. Really, your phototoxicity with Angelica can last up to 24 hours, so you almost can't create a calendar to put it on. With some oils you can say, well, I'll put it on at night and by the time I wake up then it will have processed, but Angelica not so much. So yeah, only 0.5%, but it's very useful for things like cellulite or water retention. If you've got if you blow up like a balloon before your period, but also in the legs, lymphangitis or cellulitis, both of those very, very useful oil. And actually, if you can do some lymphatic drainage massage in those situations, it's very helpful too, which it sounds really technical. It is technical. You do have to go on a course that costs you hundreds of pounds, but here we go in 2 seconds. Thumb, make a W, and you push up. You're always pushing towards the heart. So what with swollen legs, we would use the leg from the ankle. So we're working up from the ankle and we're pushing, and then we move on forward and move on forward. Push, move on forward, move on forward, push, move on forward, move on forward, push. And you might find that you need to go back down, and you're pushing the fluid up, and you'll find that it heads. It looks quite weird when you're doing it actually, because you've moved the fluid out of where you are, and then you can see that it's pulled above where you're going. So you're always pushing up, and there's 2 places on the body where the lymphatic system drains. First is in the subclavian here. So when we're doing facial lymphatic drainage, we go into the subclavian here. And excuse me, you guys see me ballet? I don't know if I can get high enough from it. No, I can't. Well, you're going down, you're going down. Here, this is here in the into the groin area, pushing the fluid. So that is lymphatic drainage. That'll be £300 for a 2-day workshop, please. Also, don't use the old oil. It irritates the skin, but also you've got this phototoxicity issue, which gets worse, I think, when it's oxidized. So we do have to replace it quite quickly. So what does it blend with? Or what does it smell like, actually? Well, it's... I wonder if I can still smell it in here. It's still there. So the top note is almost... I always think it's a bit like a talcum powder, baby powder, and it's peppery. So it's quite sort of powdery, peppery note, herbaceous, very, very nice. And then underneath is like a sort of spicy, earthy base note. And